And I think more than ever, we have to honor our officials out there because we need them more than ever right now. Being inducted today into the Hall of Fame, one of the best to ever come out of the state of Washington, Tim Stevens. Longtime administrator for the Washington Officials Association, WIAA Director of Technology for a decade. Directed WIAA-sponsored events, soccer, baseball, wrestling tournaments at all levels. Served as the 3A, 4A baseball state tournament umpire-in-chief and is doing it to this day right now. Guides the creation of a new and improved courses for officials and was inducted into the WOA Hall of Fame in 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, now a member of the WIAA Hall of Fame, Tim Stevens.
Wow, this is surreal. I remember when I was working in the WIA office back in about 2004 when they had the very first one of these, and I helped to set this up. And being a part of that first one on the behind the scenes, and being in the office every day and seeing all those plaques on the wall, I was always in awe of those people. I never ever dreamed that I'd be joining them. And especially when I think of the officials that have come before me, some legends like Ed Rhodes and Mike Burton, Cindy C. Wilson, Jack Reynolds. It just is an incredible experience to be part of all those legends. I want to start, first of all, by thanking Todd Stordahl, WA Commissioner. I'm sure you had a hand in all this, and I appreciate that. Todd and I actually go back quite a ways. I used to coach his brother in wrestling, and so it's hard to believe that we've known each other for over 30 years now. There are a lot of people who have been involved in my career over the course of the years. They've been instrumental in my walk with high school activities, but I really wanted to take some time today to especially to recognize people who are here with me today, because there are a lot of folks here and there are some who came from quite a ways, so I really want to recognize them. First, my darling sister-in-law, Wendy, who is always my cheerleader. Thanks for coming down. I appreciate it, Wendy. My good friends, Tom and Jill Heath from Moses Lake. Back in the days when I was umpiring at the Pac-12 and did summer collegiate ball at the Moses Lake Pirates, I'd go back and forth, and I met them there, and they opened their house to me and made me a part of their family. And especially Jill, I have to have a shout out because she's always believed in me, even during some difficult times in terms of my abilities, and sometimes it made me believe in myself when I had a little difficulty on my own. My friends Jim and Lori Shulak come down from Oak Harbor. Jim is the guy, we always have the person that whether a situation happens, you got a play on the field or a ruling or something like that, the first guy that you pick up the phone and call, and that's Jim. We go back quite a ways, whether it's on the field filling in for the Tacoma Rainiers during one spring and summer, or doing things like going to a collegiate clinic down in San Diego and going crazy at half price sushi and sake night. So Jim, love you, brother. Thanks for being out here for me today. In all the things that we do, a lot of times as we get so involved, it ends up that our kids get the fuzzy end of the lollipop in terms of our time. And it certainly is no different with my daughter, Kiara. But it was really cool that she got to see her dad's passion and everything that he did in terms of activities, and every once in a while even got to be a part of it, like one special game that I had at what is now T-Mobile, back then at Safeco Field, but I got to work behind the plate for a high school game, and she was my ball girl. And so to be able to share that and standing at home plate and beckoning for baseballs and having your own kiddo bring the balls out to you, that was a really special moment. And I'm really proud to see that, when we talk about athletics and activities, that she has actually embraced a passion of her own in her own activity, that being drama and theater. And so it's really, really cool to see that in her artistic side. And she I have my special occasion baseball shoes that she made for me, and so I'm wearing those today. There's a good story behind that. Ask me after the ceremony if you like. They say behind every successful man, there's a great woman. I'm fortunate to have two. The first one I want to talk about is the state of Washington is very fortunate in that we have one of the very few female administrators in baseball. And I consider it a great honor to work very closely with Cindy Adsit out of the WIAA office. Cindy and I we work pretty much hand in glove. And not only is she a good colleague, but she's also a great friend. And, one of the things that I really enjoy is, like, just last week we had a tricky situation, and we're working back and forth, and she's asking me about a rule, and I'm giving it back to her, and, she sends out the email, and we work together. And I sent her a little email last week that said, we're a well-oiled machine, and I really feel that. And so I really feel that the state of Washington is better for having Cindy, and I just really appreciate partnering in the stewardship of our great game within the state. And finally, my wife, Debbie. When we met about 12 years ago, we had a lot in common, but ironically enough, sports is not among them, but that was okay, because as it turns out, as she saw these things that I did, she embraced the baseball community and they embraced her back. And so, one of the things we talk about is that I do this umpire-in-chief thing in Pasco, and she's become a regular fixture of that, and every year people look forward to Debbie coming and joining me, and she really has become a part of all of the things that we do. And, Debbie's not the kind of person that, chokes up very easily, but I remember when I got my letter that said I was selected to the National Federation Rules Committee, and she actually shed a little tear for me because she knew how important that was to me. A couple of years ago, I made a decision that I wanted to end my officiating career by umpiring one game in each of the 50 states. And it's a pretty lofty goal that I've gotten, and I remember when I broached the subject with her. And it's like, you can kind of imagine what sort of response I got back. Only you can't. Because her response was, well, when we go to Louisiana, can we see the Bayou Country? Because I've always wanted to see the Bayou Country. I mean, what wife does that? When I sent in my picture up there, you'll notice, as BJ did, that looks like somebody else was in there. Are you sure that's the one you want to do? And I said, yes. Because the other person that you don't see in that picture is my wife, Debbie. And that's exactly the way that I wanted it. Because for the Hall of Famer that you see there, there's the one that you don't see just off the photo, and that's my wife. I want to finally recognize a couple dozen other people that had a major impact on my life that I don't know any of their names. And yes, Todd, I'm going to tell the story. Early on in my umpiring career here, after I was started off working in the PAC, a lot of those games were assigned locally, and I had an afternoon game in the PAC, well, back then it was the PAC-10, and my assigner, who locally assigned, said, I had a 6 o'clock game for you at Ballard. Can you make that? I was like, well, it's a 3 o'clock game at UW. I was supposed to be at the Ballard at 6 o'clock. He said, look, we're shorthanded. I just need you to go out there. Okay, I can do this. After the game was over, it was a great game. I was on first base. I had a real close play at first end of the game, and I was on a real high. And then after that was over, I had to hop in my car and drive over to some park in Ballard. And I had a real attitude about it because I wanted to enjoy that moment. I just worked a Pac-10 game. So I drove over, and I was kind of going later and later, and I was intentionally hitting a bunch of red lights, and hopefully if I got there late enough, everybody would have dispersed, and I could just go back and enjoy it. No, I got to the park. Sure enough, there's a little bit of a hill up at the top of the hill where all these kids were milling around. So it was a case of, well, guess I better get ready. So I started to put on my gear, and I see this one kid kind of coasting down the hill on a bike with his gloves slung over his handlebars, looking kind of glum. Then he sees me, and his eyes light up, and he says, are you the umpire? And I said, yeah, I'm the umpire. He goes, for that game up there? I said, yeah, kid, for that game up there. Now let me get dressed. He turned around and he went back up the hill without a word. And as I'm putting on my gear, I suddenly hear that same voice yelling out, hey, everybody, our umpire's here. And 25 voices cheered in unison. That sound was the sound of a 2x4 hitting me upside my head. I wasn't there for me. I was there for them. They didn't care that I had just got done working a Pac-10 game. All that they knew was their umpire was there and their game was on. And with that realization, I worked harder for those kids than I did for the Huskies that afternoon. See, the coaches, the administrators, the WIAA staff, everybody. One of the things that I learned that afternoon, back in the 1980s, is that we're here for the kids, we're not here for us. And so everything that's driven me has come from that moment. Right now, being the recipient of this is more than I can imagine, and I thank everybody who is involved in this award, because I will treasure these moments for all the rest of my life. And for my folks back at Expedia Group, Data Governance, I told them I'd give them a shout out, so hi to all my folks at work. But thanks to all of you, thanks for this opportunity. God bless.